Well, the storm is also causing major flooding on the 5 freeway in Sun Valley. Here's a look from Air 7 earlier. As you can see, it's caused slow going for drivers using side streets and roads as a detour. At last check, the freeway is still closed in both directions near Lancashire. This has been going on for the last several hours now.
Scientists are issuing grave warnings as Los Angeles finds itself in the grip of a disaster that has left residents, authorities, and experts reeling. Density, a vast sprawl long celebrated for its sunshine and resilience, has now been engulfed by relentless floodwaters. What began as 3 days of heavy downpours quickly escalated into a catastrophic event, staggering in both scope and impact. Real footage captured at B residents from vehicles and behind rain-streaked windows shows roads transformed into rivers, neighborhoods baited beyond recognition, and families forced to abandon their homes with little warning. The urgency this is not merely a Cassia wetter than normal weather. Each surge has battered the city with a foreseen unpredictability exceeding anything in recent memory. City streets have been overrun by torrents, traffic signals flicker in sodden darkness, and those on the margins, the people and familiars living without stable shelter, have borne the brunt as emergency resources swiftly overwhelmed and encampments are washed from beneath highways and bridges. Overhead, news helicopters stook neighborhoods frozen in chaos. Traffic halted by massive sinkholes, sewage gushing unchecked from below, and dependable infrastructure instant to an unrelenting deluge. Every scene is steeped in emotion, disbelief, panic, and the raw fear of seeing the familiar swept away before your eyes. Reports from Los Angeles County Emergency Operations reveal a metropolis tested to the limits of its as evacuation orders multiple warnings blare from radios and phones, and the storms advanced in straits. Just how vulnerable the city is to severe flooding and its compounding effects. Scientists monitor live data have described a nightmare scenarios, entire sections of urban Los Angeles submerged, each heralding to damage that will take months, if not years, to repair. Yet, even as the threat becomes visible on every street, the true scale of the disaster extends far beyond what the eye can see. The chaos wrought by the flooding is only the opening act, with deeper consequences for the city's its vulnerable and its future resilience. As alarming footage continues to circulate and the immediate crisis is burned into public memory, new questions. How did the situation escalate rapidly? What factors converged to turn a sprawling metropolis into a disaster zone overnight? And most sobering of all, is this devastation a fluke? Or is Los Angeles now facing the new normal in an era of intensifying weather extremes? What makes this storm and its aftermath so unprecedented? When seasoned experts are at a loss for answers. Science points to a rare convergence of meteorological extremes, massive atmospheric rivers, and long-standing vulnerabilities in Southern California's landscape and urban systems. As Dr. Lena Chang, atmospheric physicist at the Pacific Center for Ocean and Atmospheric Research, explains, what we are seeing is not just heavy rain. We are witnessing the relentless effects of sustained atmospheric rivers, soils unable to absorb more moisture, and urban infrastructure pushed far past its design limits. The core of this crisis, catastrophic flooding, a terrifying gulf of California's storm surge, has forced a reconsideration of what is possible for city life amidst a rapid life-changing climate. When the rain first began, most Angelenos could not have anticipated the disaster that lay ahead. Atmospheric rivers, a term familiar to meteorologists but ominous to lay people, drew moisture from the Pacific and parked over the region, unleashing wave after wave of precipitation. Los Angeles, typically associated with droughts and water restrictions, suddenly found itself inundated. Viral footage spread rapidly. Major highways transformed into waterways, cars stranded or swept away, neighborhoods baited by repeated surges. But the most haunting images showed calm moments before the chaos. A driver filming a flooded but seemingly quiet street unaware of the impending crisis. Every part of Los Angeles felt the effects. Vast expanses of concrete, asphalt, and rooftops left rainwater with few places to go besides storm drains that soon overflowed. Eyewitness videos captured water racing along gutters with now forced to dislodge manhole covers, sending cars and bins into the flow. All over the city, residents desperately laid sandbags, placed boards at doors, and tried improvised defenses against relentless onslaught. The early warning signs that this was no ordinary storm became impossible to ignore. Atmospheric river events, as Dr. Chang and her team have noted, can transport moisture at an almost unimaginable, sometimes rivaling the Amazon River's volume. When such corridors of moisture stall over land, rain becomes both unrelenting and devastating, quickly overwhelming preparedness plans and flood defenses. Rainfall totals climbed hourly, breaking records and raising alarm. Power transmission lines sagged or sparked as floodwaters reached substations. Emergency workers navigated flooded footpaths and alleys seeking the stranded or vulnerable. Sometimes, confronting impossible roads, collapsed hillsides, or urgent calls for rescue in neighborhoods caught unprepared. In the Hollywood Hills, saturated soils unleashed mud and debris into homes and blocked Key roads along often maligned Los Angeles. River rescue operations intensified as water levels rose faster than alerts could be. Much as recent floods have abandoned communities all along California's coast, Los Angeles is once seen as century flood protections buckled within a matter of hours. Engineers and first responders exchanged urgent requests for reinforcements. Geologists like Dr. Marcus Ellery at the U.S. Geological Survey warned, this is a classic compound disaster. Extreme moisture from offshore saturated ground and in places scarred by recent fires dramatically heightened landslide risk. By the storm's second day, a state of emergency was in effect. Major thoroughfares vanished beneath brown water. Emergency shelters filled to capacity. Images flashed nationwide off underpasses and quiet neighborhoods stormed by storm. Los Angeles' vulnerability, its density, aging infrastructure and precarious hillsides was now manifest. Before we continue, take a moment to reflect. The events unfolding are not distant or abstract. They are remapping daily life with consequences that will reach Allen. Stay tuned as we cover each vital update in one of the most dramatic crises to strike Los Angeles as the city endures each new hour. The underlying danger is not just what is seen. It is the hidden interplay of forces now reshaping Los Angeles from within. To truly grasp the depth of this emergency, one must look beneath this. The havoc was not produced by rainfall alone. It reflects a rare and destructive collision between atmospheric, geographic and urban. The hidden anatomy of disaster is traced through Los Angeles soils, its old infrastructure, and the legacy of both drought and wildfire. For years Los Angeles benefited from its rain shadow, with the surrounding mountains shielding it from most winter storms. That advantage vanished as atmospheric rivers poured moisture over the city again and again. The same hills that can shelter neighborhoods from winds became vulnerable when they're dry. Drought-hardened soils could absorb no. Areas scorched by the January wildfires, stripped of stabilizing irrigation, became treacherous. Mudslides carved new paths through canyons, cascading debris into well-manicured suburbs. The vast urban landscape offered no more safety. Their cities, rivers, and storm channels built for the mid-20th century's rainfall reached their limits almost immediately. Live feeds captured water surging over concrete banks, sweeping away dumpsters, playgrounds, and cars. Neighborhoods not previously considered flood found themselves inundated with surge from storm drains and residues of oil and chemicals. So many times overlooked vulnerabilities further complicated the crisis. Subtle ground subsidence sections of the city gradually sinking each year. Exacerbated redevelopment and water table shifts become more consequential in low-lying areas. Dr. Mars research at the Pacific Coastal Research Network draws to how normally subsidence can suddenly boost local flood risk. During extreme events. Online, viewers saw water rising block by block faster and farther inland than any official model had projected. But perhaps most devastating was how past disasters worsened present ones. The scars left by January's wildfires left some hillsides unable to retain soil when the rains came. Neighborhoods that seemed protected were evacuated in a matter of hours, with mud and rock surging into homes and streets. As Dr. Ellery told emergency crews, when we combine ground subsidence, fire-scared slopes and this type of precipitation, we get devastating landslides with little forewarning. Each missing layer of soil amplifies the next threat. Thus, the city found itself imperiled by a chain reaction. Record rainfall, surging runoff, mudslides, blocked roads, and each disaster feeding the next. For many residents, the time to prepare or even understand the dangers evaporated as each new emergency alerts ignored a crisis in the making. This reality prompts a difficult question. Can a city recover when foundational elements, soil, rivers, power and pipes are all impaired? For Los Angeles ditus, now the defining challenge. Nothing reveals the scale of the crisis like the lived aftermath documented by shaken voices and striking images. In the days since the first downpour, videos and photos circulated that mark how the city has been transformed. Highways that once seemed invulnerable became impossible. Their concrete lanes submerged and traffic at a standstill. Drone footage from the 405 and 101 freeways showed vehicles half underwater, some abandoned while drivers waited to safety on foot. The San Fernando Valley saw entire neighborhoods enveloped by feet of sinkholes opened suddenly beneath blocks, damaging gas and water main. In one widely shared rescue, firefighters carried both children and pets through waist-deep water as power lines sparked overhead. The losses inside homes and businesses are not measured solely by material damage. In affluent areas, water destroyed cherished artwork, family albums, and irreplaceable belongings. But it was the visible losses in rented rooms and makeshift apartments that cut deepest. People losing all their possessions and left to navigate overflowing shelters and uncertain recoveries. Emergency shelters and food banks experienced a level of need not seen in years, and communities with little prior experience of disaster were suddenly the focus of extensive relief efforts. Thorough footage portrays not just panic but slow, numbing strain of daily life disrupted. Children gathered beneath naked blankets while school gyms housed entire families. Shopkeepers stripped only to find sewer water. Those already unhoused or precariously sheltered found tents and possessions swept away with few place left to turn. Psychologically, the image lingers. Residents pore over lost possessions, shifting through photos and debris, absorbing the realization that no neighborhood was beyond this storm's. On top of school closures, transit shutdowns, and health concerns from contaminated water, comes the fear. When will it happen again? As scientists like Dr. Chang and Dr. Ellery have emphasized, this is not a simple setback but an event altering the very landscape and memory of the city. Safety and certainty for many have vanished with waters. As the scope of destruction became apparent, another crisis, the gulf between past predictions and the full observation. Los Angeles's emergency warning systems and flood planning designed for precious minutes for evacuation or response often failed to keep pace. In hard-hit losses, alerts arrived late or not at all, while warnings when functional struggled to cut through widespread blackouts. Large swaths of city were plunged into darkness, complicating rescue efforts as tens of thousands lost access to both electricity and communications. We're trained for flash floods, Emergence Coordinator Lisa Mendoza admitted, but not for the systemic failure of so many defenses at once. Advanced models were quickly outdated by reality as rain gauges and river monitors recorded water levels previously associated with 100-year flood events. Entire neighborhoods, including some by and recognized floodplains, were of it. Emergency operators were forced to abandon protocol and improvise using satellite feeds and crowdsourced footage to redirect responders on the fly. Revisiting sessions, researchers point to a record atmospheric river amplified by saturated soils from earlier rains, wildfire-exposed hillsides, and the cumulative effects of flood risk maps are dynamic. As Dr. Ma notes, especially in a city where the ground is shifting, infrastructure is aging, and the climate itself is in flux, the margin for error is shrinking. Thus, the disaster's aftermath is measured not just by structures lost or streets destroyed, but by the realization that prior levels of preparedness have been overtaken by new hazards. Many believed their neighborhoods to be safe, but that distinction dissolved beneath their relentless waters. Your comment below if you faced direct impact as coverage and community exchange become essential in navigating aftermath. With the floods now beginning to recede, it is apparent that Los Angeles's infrastructure, once a source of civic pride, has been pushed shadow breaking point. Repair and rebuilding will demand months, if not years. Electricity was lost for hundreds of thousands during peak storm conditions. As power substations were overrun, transmission poles collapsed, and electrical workers found themselves unable to traverse flooded streets. The city's Department of Water and Power labored night and day to patch systems and restore grids. Temporary fixes kept hospitals and emergency shelters operational, but exposed just how fragile lifelines can become in extra. Water and sewage systems took similar blows. Erupted pipes, recessed drains, and widespread backups plagued both homes and businesses. Floodwaters carried toxic runoff through the concrete river system and into communities already coping with displacement and loss. Short-term fixes rapidly erected BMS or emergency pump sheltered only briefly against the tide of water and debris. The most vulnerable residents experienced the greatest. Homeless encampments already in precarious condition vanished in thick. Shelters overflowed with new arrivals as advocates pleaded for dry clothing and more space. Neighborhoods accustomed to relative stability became the epicenter for emergency relief. The process of recovery is grinding but urgent. Cleanup crews remove debris from storm channels. Utility workers venture house by house, restoring heat and power wherever. Health officials issue advisories on water quality. The psychological impact. Anxiety about recurrence, uncertainty about what insurance or assistance will cover its or layer to the difficulty that out of this emerges a new normal. Every neighborhood, even those not previously considered at risk, must now plan for unpredictable surges and floods. Dr. Chang voices the new consensus. Modernist resilience demands a fundamental rethink. Every community must recognize its vulnerability and plan accordingly. As repairs continue, Los Angeles faces deeper questions. How does a colossal city adapt to their reality that what seemed unimaginable is now possible? From the scientific perspective, events like these are not. They are warnings of a more chaotic climate future for regions sexually like Southern California. Experts highlight that increasing frequency of atmospheric rivers matter more intense by changing ocean currents on rising temperatures as an unavoidable stress on urban infrastructure. Dr. Ellery points out clear connection. With each storm, baseline risk increases. Weakness exposed by one event become entry points for the next. These are not they are stages in a broader transformation. Adaptation will require systemic changes. That means not just higher flood barriers or stronger pumps, but a more holistic approach. Restoring more natural floodplains, replanting hillsides after wildfire, rethinking how and where cities sprawl. The lesson is, the most expensive repairs not prevention but delayed response after catastrophe. Urban planning, emergency communication, and robust public engagement must all evolve to match the new scale of risk. Crucially, adaptation is a social component. Resiliency depends on networks of support, clear and trustworthy communication, and ensuring that recovery reaches everyone, not just those with means. Los Angeles' future will be shaped not only by a built infrastructure, but by its capacity for collective adaptation. And as the focus shifts from trade to long-term planning, one central myth is surely laid to rest. Invulnerability is gone, replaced by the knowledge that life alongside ecosystems will require new approaches, greater solidarity, and more flexible systems. As dusk falls on Los Angeles, daily life returns, partly hesitantly. Children play outside makeshift shelters. Neighbors share what little they have left, and the work of recovery. But beneath these routines, questions remain, as do anxieties: a booth next storm, the next river over, the next impossible flood. For some, survival is victory enough. For others, those without homes, jobs, or a sense of security, the path ahead is obscured and daunting. City leaders promise new studies and stronger emergency managers conducted briefings and scientists pore over newly acquired data. The trauma of this flood, captured so vividly in video and word, becomes a collective memory and hopefully a catalyst for better. Yet, the true aftermath is more ambiguous. The process is not just about draining water or clearing roads. It is at its core a test of resolve and continuity. The next disaster is never far away. Whether measured in years or months, for Los Angeles, that terrifying aftermath is now a message for every scientist, every neighbor, every policymaker who must rethink what it means to be. Stay safe, stay connected, subscribe for every critical update, and join the conversation. Did this storm touch your life? What lessons should guide recovery and resilience? And as Los Angeles continues its journey through uncertainty, let us watch, learn, and remember, so the cost of this might never be paid again. Amazing discoveries. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Share this video with friends and join the discussion on what these findings could mean. Your thoughts and questions are important, so let's explore incredible mysteries together.